totally missed the opportunity at a really great tease coming into this break, so I'm going to do it now, okay? A crisis of faith. Next on the Bert Show.
That was your big tease.
It's not that big.
It's not that.
It's kind of mediocre.
Yeah, you better than that.
What you actually need is that voice disguiser that Kristen had yesterday, where it has like the booming voice, where it's like, "Oh, this season on A Crisis of Faith
On the Bert Show.
On the Bert Show."
Speaking of which, real quick, Kristen's not on the show today because she had the Gracie's last night, and she's out in LA, so she would have gotten 6 minutes of sleep. So she's off today, and she'll tell us all about it tomorrow. All right, so tell us about this crisis of faith.
Yeah, so after watching The Secret Life of Mormon Wives, I was like, I don't know if I believe in God anymore. No, I'm just kidding. After years of being a Bible-thumping Christian, I've just started critically thinking about why I believe and all of these existential questions that I think everybody really asks themselves about, like, you know, if this is how I'm going to live my life and if I'm going to have these beliefs, what do I have to back it up? And I just started to really wonder if I had actual... I think evidence is the wrong word, but just started to feel like maybe the reasons I was believing weren't actually as credible as I needed them to be as an adult. I just started to really start poking holes in the story, if you will. And just, I don't know, I'm really trying to do a deep dive so that when I move forward with whether I'm going to believe or not believe, I can stand firmly on knowing that I'm making the right decision for me. So I've started doing this thing where I've decided to start talking to God again, because that's probably something you should do if you want to hear him talk back. And I was going to do this thing where every single day for 40 days I was going to talk to him. I started getting scared, so I started making it like every other day.
What do you mean?
Turns out talking to God's really intimidating. And there are so many other more fun things to do, like watch reality TV.
I don't think he's going to like that.
No, he's not.
No. That you picked Mormon Wives over him. It's not going to go over very well. So when you're writing your journal and you're saying like, oh my God, this is really scary, is it just because it's making you do like an internal, what's the word I'm looking for?
Internal dialogue?
Or internal check of what's going on in your life?
Yeah, I just don't want to sit with really uncomfortable feelings. I'm a big number. I just would rather, sorry, I'm burping, not crying. I'm sorry, I realized what that sounded like. She's like, oh, she's getting so emotional.
Some days you can't tell.
Yeah, that sounds like a good Bert Show game.
Am I burping or crying?
So I think it's kind of like the same reason why some people get really anxious about going to therapy. Like there's a lot of things that you have to consider about your life, and there's a lot of questions you have to ask yourself, and that sometimes is going to bring up stuff that, quite frankly, on like a Thursday night, I don't want to think about.
Yeah, I think you're doing the right thing by doing it now, because the analogy to therapy is like, I've always felt like you can hide from yourself for a week or for a month, or you can hide from your past or what happened to you in your past for a year or 10 years, but at some point or another, you are always going to come back to your authentic self. So you can put it off for as long as you want, but you're going to have to face it sometime.
Yeah, and I think your 20s are the perfect time and the time you should be doing a lot of self-exploration and defining who you are, so that, you know, when your personality freezes over at 30, you can live your life the rest of the way as it should be. And so I decided, in realizing that I was scared to start kind of doing a big deep dive on this introspective part of my faith and just poking holes and stuff, I was like, why don't I just go back to why I started this? And that's trying to find reasons in my life to believe that Christianity is what I believe. And I think a lot of those reasons have to do with like the evidence that you see in your own life. And I remember last time I brought this up, I'm burping, not crying again. I really shouldn't have had yogurt before this break.
This is God's will right there, man.
God's like, shut up. You're not representing me well. You had brought up like how things in your life are signs or gifts, and that you attribute those to God. And I was like, for sure, like I've definitely attributed those things to God in my life before. But at some point, like if you start to feel like your faith and your life become incongruent, how can I really say that this gift, quote unquote, is from God? Like maybe this is just life. You know what I mean? And some people aren't getting these gifts. So why is God not gifting them? That's kind of an a-hole thing to do.
Yeah. Gosh, I want to stay away from that sentence. I guess my point to you when I said that was like, I really am just at a point in my life where I feel like it's all kind of a gift. And I just really feel like I have a lot of faith in that whatever is happening in my life, God has put me in the perfect position for it. This is where he wants me. I don't question it. I know it's hard, but this is where I'm supposed to be at this certain time.
I have struggled with that thought of like, why do certain people have certain things other people don't? But at the same time, I do believe in this wholeheartedly that you are what you believe you are and you will accomplish what you believe you will accomplish. And I think you have to consider that God can't do it all. And there's a lot of people who may have more if they believed that they could have more. But everybody just has different beliefs and different mindsets of what is possible for them and for each individual. So sometimes I wonder, I don't know if it's a punishment that certain people don't have certain things, but maybe they just don't manufacture it or will it into their life. And I don't think that's necessarily God's fault.
Yeah. Well, I guess I think of like the really extreme examples. Like I think everyone starts to think about like starving kids in third world countries. I'm like, they can't really do anything for themselves. And so like, does God not love them enough to like get them out of that situation? So I think a lot of my belief in God is kind of like, well, everything has kind of worked out for me. I'm like, well, these are all gifts, but I'm like, have they worked out for me because, I was born into the right family and the right socioeconomic status with the right genes to be able to be capable of working and being creative. I'm just kind of trying to figure out what I attribute to God and what do I attribute to just like circumstances. And so I decided to just start keeping a page in this journal, the book of existential crisis, of just things that I'm noticing that I'm hoping as I continue this journey of being really insightful with my faith, I'm hoping at some point I will be able to attribute these to God again. Like I really don't want to have to run away from my faith, but at the same time, like I want to really feel like I'm firmly in that belief if I'm going to call myself a Christian and live my life that way. And so I started noticing some things in my life currently, and I started taking inventory of the things that I've remembered that I've always attributed to as signs from God. And actually, weirdly enough, something happened over the weekend while I was texting my mom. And this is one of those things that 3 years ago, I would have been like, that's God, or that's a sign from heaven that the other side, if you will, is trying to communicate with me. And I was texting with my mom and I looked outside my window, and I live on a pretty high floor in an apartment, and I noticed a red cardinal outside my apartment. And I was like, oh, I don't personally attribute cardinals to anybody in my life other than my mom's mom who passed away a couple of years ago. I feel like everyone has that person that they think they see through red cardinals. And so I always thought it was a beautiful symbol, but I'm like, I don't really know if that's like actually somebody coming to visit you from the other side in the form of a red cardinal. But I see this red cardinal outside my window, and I'm texting my mom, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because the only person who talks to me about red cardinals is my mom about her mom. And I look at the time just because I was just curious. I'm like, I wonder if this means something. And the time was 12:24 p.m. So 12:24. And I'm like, whose birthday was 12:24? My mom's mom. And I text my mom immediately. I'm like, you'll never guess what just happened. And I'm like, I just saw a cardinal and it happens to be 12:24. Like, that's so crazy and weird. And I'm like, maybe I'm just like, tying things together that don't need to be tied together. But I'm in the stage of my life where like, I'm looking for signs. I'm like, someone tell me if there's something out there. There was a moment where I got off the phone with my mom and the numbers were 444, and that's our family number. And those are also angel numbers. And I'm like, okay, maybe that means something. And, I was talking to God kind of just in my own head last week, and I was just sort of getting frustrated, and I was looking for this journal because I was trying to, find some time to sit down and actually ask some questions. And I found an old journal that I'd had from my church going days a while back that had been like thrown under my bed. And I opened it up, and it opened up to a page from a couple of months ago that I didn't even remember writing in. I didn't even remember having this conversation with God, but I guess I had grabbed that journal and started asking him questions about getting a sign for a certain move in my life that I wanted to make. And I was like, I need a clear sign as to whether or not I should do this or not. And I had gotten a clear sign whether or not to do that thing or not. And I was like, wow, I totally didn't even take inventory of that. And I had gotten such a clear sign and direction as to what I was supposed to do, and I just dismissed it. And so I think what I'm trying to say here with all of this is that I think maybe a lot of my faith has been dwindling because I've stopped paying attention and I've stopped trying to make these I've stopped trying to make these connections in relation to God. So I think a lot of this has been a really good step forward in just trying to, at the very least, notice that there is something greater out there, whether or not that's God or not. And I think I've always had that belief, but I think just writing these down have really restored my faith that at the very least, somebody is out there looking out for me.
So does this make you want to start going to church again more? Or when you're coming to this conclusion, how do you move forward with that relationship?
I think it's more of a comforting sign that I'm moving in the right direction and that I'm talking and someone's listening.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. So
would there be one thing that could happen where you would definitively would say, okay, there it is?
I don't know. And maybe I think that's wrong to like draw that up in my head as to how I think it should happen. Because I think if I am going to get some big, great sign from the universe that I think everybody in their life has asked for, I think having those expectations would just set me up for disappointment. And I think I would assume that it was just like confirmation bias if it happened.
I will say this. I think the last time we had this conversation, I said something to you about sometime I felt like when I wasn't hearing from God, it was me. Like I was the one who was being distant and I wasn't the one who was looking for it. And I do remember a pastor telling me, if you really want to hear or know if God is talking to you, ask for the sign and look for it in threes. That's what he told me. So if you get a sign in threes, that can't be anything but God. And you mentioned 3 signs. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Breaking news, God is real.
The Bert Show.